One of the things we love about the CX Leader podcast is that you get some of the best advice from leaders in customer experience.
Let's deliver a CX that also gets new customers. Let's turn our customers into a marketing force. And that changes the entire value proposition.
Some of the best take-home value moments from our luminaries on this episode of the CX Leader podcast. The CX Leader podcast with Steve Walker is produced by Walker, a business consulting firm that helps our clients unlock the potential of their customer experiences by placing the customer at the heart of all their business decisions. You can find out more at walkerinfo.com. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Higgins, the producer of the CX Leader podcast, filling in for Steve this week. Thank you for listening. On the CX Leader podcast, we explore topics and themes to help leaders like you leverage all the benefits of customer experience and help your customers and prospects want to do more business with you. One of the strengths of the CX Leader podcast is our commitment to bringing you some of the best advice possible, tips and tricks from customer experience professionals who have been working to improve their customers' or clients' experience with organizations. We call this our take-home value, and it's become the hallmark of the show. So we listened back to some of the take-home value moments within our Luminary series and chose 4 that seemed to stand out. And we'll start with one of the more recent interviews. Tabatha Dunn is the Global Vice President of Customer Insights, Experience, and Transformation at the software company SAP. And she had some advice on how CX leaders need to be persuasive. Let's dust off the Wayback Machine and dial it to just a few episodes ago and listen to what she had to say.
Hey, Tabatha, one of the hallmarks of the CX Leader podcast is I always asked our guests for their very best tip. We call this the take-home value part of the program. You've shared a lot of take-home value today, and I hope our listeners are making notes and they'll listen to the program more than once. But if you had to boil it down to one tip that you would provide to your peers and people that are out there trying to drive their customer experience programs or run a better business just from being customer focused, what would be your one tip?
I would say that, beyond all the best practices that you need to have a best-in-class CX program, beyond change management, beyond excellent leadership skills that you're always learning and growing, I think about it as the art of persuasion. So in the CX leader role, you would often end up sitting in a seat where you have all of this responsibility, all of this accountability, but no authority to actually do anything, which can be the most frustrating part of the job for a lot of people. It comes down to CX really does take a village. And that means that the art of persuasion and influence is incredibly valuable to a CX leader because you have to be willing to really dive into the hard stuff and bring people along for the journey. And some days are definitely better than others at being able to be successful at that. But that piece of really learning how to be more effective at telling the story and listening and bringing people into the fold and persuading them to want to be a part of this thing that we're undertaking together has been the most important part about making sure that my team can be successful at doing what we love to do every single day.
Many of our listeners will probably have heard of Baer, a dynamic speaker, best-selling author, and successful entrepreneur. We were grateful to have Jay on the podcast, and of course, he did not disappoint, especially with this little piece of take-home advice on finding your company's talk triggers.
That is a perfect lead into my key question I ask every guest on every podcast is take-home value. I'm a CX professional. I'm intrigued with the thoughts that Baer is laying out here. I'm going to buy the book online right now. What do I do about this now? How do I actually operationalize this in my company? What's the first few steps I could take starting tomorrow to move my organization further down?
Here's the problem that a lot of CX professionals have, and you probably know this as well as anybody in the world. A lot of CX pros are hamstrung by the fact that they are thought to be engines of retention in their business. If we have good CX, we will keep more customers. And that's a worthy goal. Don't get me wrong. I wrote a whole book about that called Hug Your Haters. It's a worthy goal. and it's an important goal. But what we can do with talk triggers is we can say, let's deliver a CX that also gets new customers. Let's turn our customers into a marketing force. And that changes the entire value proposition of CX in the organization. But the only way that works is to first map your customer journey. And then what we recommend is do a lot of customer interview work to understand in a very specific capacity what your customers expect from your organization at each of those inflection points. Because once you know what they expect, then you can deliver what they don't expect. And the difference between what they expect and what they don't expect, that delta is where your talk trigger comes from.
People who've been in the customer experience profession probably know that much of CX stemmed from the world of user experience, or UX, which is heavily influenced on how experiences are designed. Steve spoke with Kerry Bodine, founder of Kerry Bodine and Company, and they discussed the importance and impact of user and human-centered design within CX. Kerry's take-home value was pretty simple. Learn more about design.
Kerry, we've really enjoyed having you on the program, but I can't let you go without the hallmark of the CX Leader podcast, and that is our segment on take-home value. So, Kerry Bodine, as a luminary in this profession, what is the one or two tips you would give to our listeners today that could help them improve their performance around their customer experience expertise?
Well, I wouldn't be true to my first love of design if I didn't mention that. So if human-centered design or service design are new terms, new ideas to you, I'd really encourage you to go out there and take a look and really just start to learn about that. There's tons of resources out there on human-centered design and service design, conferences that you can go to if you want to invest even more time in that, or training courses. And then again, journey management. I think that this is something that every organization needs to start looking at sooner rather than later. And those who leave it to later are definitely going to be behind. So the first step here is really to think about what journeys warrant management, because there are lots of journeys that your customers have with your organization. Not all journeys are created equal. Some of them probably require ongoing oversight, and others may not. So start to identify 2 or 3 journeys that are both really important to your customers and also really important to driving results for your business.
Let's listen to one more piece of take-home value. Shep Hyken is a best-selling author, speaker, and customer service and experience expert. Shep and Steve had a great conversation on the importance of convenience, an insight we share here at Walker. Let's listen to the take-home value that Shep had to offer.
Hey, Shep, we always try to give our listeners a little take-home value, and since we have the benefit of having you on the show this week, if I'm a customer experience pro out there and I'm trying to enhance my company's customer experience or my company's competitiveness, what do you think are the 1 or 2 things that the CX pro really ought to be dialing in on today?
So I'm going to give you some old school, give you an example, and then back it up with something new, even though we talked a little bit about it. And that is, I think the most important thing a company can do, well, actually, there's a number: hire the right people, train the right people properly, create the right culture. But if you want to get operational and tactical, I think creating the right journey map, really going deep into the actual touch points that customer has. But once you get there, you want to analyze, I call this service creativity, every one of those touch points, and say, what can we do to make it better? And that's one great opportunity to say, you know what, here's different ways we can do it, and get lots of people involved so you get lots of different ideas. And then instead of not just making it better, what can you do to make it more convenient? And I'll give you a quick example. In the book, I talk about Uber. We all know Uber disrupted the taxi cab industries. I lived in the suburbs, and in order for me to get a taxi cab, I had to make a phone call. And then I had to wait for the cab to show up. Many times I had to call back and ask, where's my cab? I get in the car, The guy doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know where I'm going. I don't know how much it's going to be. I finally get there. I give the guy or gal their money and I get out. And what Uber did is they took a look at all of those touch points that the customer dealt with. And they said, let's make it easier. They created an app. I don't have to make the phone call. I look at my phone. I can see how many cars are nearby or how far away they are. I type in where I'm going to go. 3 or 4 letters in, it auto-populates because that's what the system does. It tells me how much it's going to be before I say okay. When I finally do say okay, it then tells me how far my driver is, and I could watch the driver driving toward me on the screen. And when the guy gets there and picks me up, or the gal, they know who I am. They know where I'm going. They don't have to ask. And when I get out, I don't have to pay with what's in my pocket. It's just automatically taken care of. The only part of the process they haven't figured out how to eliminate friction-wise is the actual drive. And until we start to beam people up like Star Trek, you're still going to have to get in the car and drive with somebody. But they looked at all these different touch points and eliminated friction. And we should be looking at our companies and all the touch points our customers have with us, and not just try to give them a better experience, a more friendly experience, but also a more convenient experience.
Well, that wraps up another trip on our Wayback Machine to revisit those take-home values from our CX luminaries. And we hope the advice you heard in this program helps you improve your customer experience. If you want to talk about anything you heard on this episode or about how Walker can help your business's customer experience, you can contact Steve Walker at steve.walker@walkerinformation.com or call us here in the U.S. at 1-317-843-8890. Don't hesitate to reach out. I know Steve would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to the CX Leader podcast. You can go to walkerinfo.com/podcasts, and you'll find links to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and on our YouTube channel as well. Simply go to walkerinfo.tv to listen. And if you haven't heard, Walker was named the Qualtrics 2019 CX Partner of the Year. You can learn more about that by going to walkerinfo.com/X4. Thank you for listening to the CX Leader podcast, which is a production of Walker. We're a business consulting firm that can help you make customer experience your biggest competitive advantage. Find out more at walkerinfo.com, and we'll see you next time.